Hello, and everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Business Transition, that's my channel's name, and I'm also known as It's Just Ali here. My name isn't actually Ali, but it's shortened from another name. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about capitalist issues or the game in general. So, what does this mean? Capitalism is defined by basically a system in which people are privately owned companies, for instance. They're the ones that succeed because it's not, as opposed to socialism, even though we'll get to that later on because they're all intertwined, they happen to work in a sort of way. I was watching a TED Talk this morning and a few TED Talks in general as well as channels and doing some research. I noticed that, however, that a lot of people are in favour for capitalism, and also that some people do tend to hate it in general. Now, I'm going to try to keep this nuanced but I'm going to start with a con because many people tend to disagree with it. The main con of capitalism, and which in London especially we tend to see it a lot because there's a high, it's the financial district, I guess you could say. We have it. It's just the way it is. Number one, capitalism makes you become stuck in a rut, as they call it. It's a game. I call it a game because we're essentially all playing it without realizing it. And it means that you can't succeed any further than the place you're in unless you make a name for yourself or have connections or you're from a wealthy background, for instance. But the TED Talk I was quite interested in says that actually it's all about economics rather than background itself. Sure, good looks or whatever helps, but it's not the main factor. And it's quite interesting to say because economics, if you can play the game, the point I want to argue is that actually the main con is we're all stuck in a rut because you can't succeed. Many people are working in low-paying manual wage jobs, and you're getting minimum wage of £7.30 an hour, which is the minimum wage here in London anyway, perhaps £8, and it's just not enough to live on. And the thing is, it's a cycle, and the cycle goes round and round of you have to pay your bills. You get paid. As soon as you pay your bills, you don't have any extra income left to perhaps succeed or do your own, to live a life, And that's a major con because to be able to progress, you need education. And if you can't pay for your education, which I know, for instance, people are doubting universities because there's £9,250 per year tuition and they may not be entitled to government loans, for instance. But this is a vicious cycle that goes round. And personally, even if I am at university myself and I'm studying and I'm quite lucky, I still tend to get annoyed by this and it frustrates me because I feel like we're all stuck in a rut. Even if you're a high person playing this field, unless you're the top millionaire, because capitalism is basically a level in which you need to level up by, then you're essentially stuck. So number two is perhaps a pro. Capitalism isn't a major extreme, as you might call it. Actually, it's rather a mixture of socialism and which it first derived from, you can say it in that way. So this means that perhaps even though there are plenty of billionaires and the inequality is high, they all started from a low point. So they may have started a company at one point that was the same as any other company. The video that I found rather interesting is there was one that said if many bakeries, for instance, are selling a loaf of bread for £2 each, which is still expensive, but hey, then one can't sell it for £5 if it's just starting out unless it has something exceptional about it, because then they're going to not succeed, if that makes sense. So if they're all selling for £2 and there's like 10 of them, it's better to have 3 of them selling for £2 and one that does succeed, which perhaps is an example of capitalism in this moment. Now, why is it a game, perhaps? I use the term game rather than issues with or pros and cons of, because the game factor is that you're all in it without helping. You can't get out of it. It's a vicious cycle Also, whatever job you do choose, even if it may not be, even if it may help you succeed and you may be in the top of the capitalism game, you still can't say, I'm not playing the game. Because the thing is, as long as you contribute to the economy by paying your taxes, for instance, or buying and selling and all of that type of things, then you are part of the game because you live in society in which this is the way the system works. And that's how it runs. Now, I personally, what do I think of it? I don't think it's a negative thing. I think it's very easily able for one to succeed, such as Amazon, let's say. I know it's a bad example, but I tend to admire their structure, in which many people hate it because of their tax avoidance, which is quite legal, actually. I see it as an advantage. Well, if you can have a business that succeeds so well and a structure that people want to buy assets from it, correct me if I'm wrong, then why wouldn't you be able to sell those assets to be able to lower your overall tax rate? Now, I'm quite interested in tax overall, so apologies, just skip this bit if you don't like it. Now, number two, well, two, I say number five more like, but another issue of capitalism, you can say, is that it needs consumerism, I guess you could say. We're all going to buy it because we're all going to play in the role of it. But the thing is, you can never get to the top. That seems to be the main issue of capitalism, in which you can earn £100,000 a year and be in the top tier in London, but there will always be someone earning higher than you, which makes you feel rather low in the sense, yay, I accomplished that much money, but my income is worth on my profession, and my profession is what determines my self-worth, if that makes sense, which is kind of a ridiculous theme, but it's quite occurring, and it's something that generally people see it as. Success is generally seen as money and self-worth in a way, and I know lots of people have a different definition of success, which is sure good. Everyone has it, but the thing is, unless you can actually prove your definition, then your opinion doesn't matter in a way. And wait, I can't prove my opinion, sure, but I have a justification to myself which may not be factual. So I find that capitalism, for instance, I give reasons to it, and I think that's a good thing, because my reasons are special to myself. So if someone had different reasons and a different overall opinion, as long as they can back up their thoughts and plans, and thus the thought process in general, then that means that your opinion is correct, at least to yourself, since it is not a priori. Carrying on. Capitalism is the thing where it seems, especially during the pandemic, I think I should mention, it's just kind of divided us even further, because the length of inequality, for instance, in London, I know that there are many billionaires, I mentioned once again, but also the fact that you can walk anywhere, basically. You can have a mansion in one street and then walk 2 minutes away, or just the opposite street, and have a council house, which is kind of shocking in the sense where you think London is just a rich and very diverse, but diverse is a good thing. But depends what area you're in, because usually the inequality is quite visible more than any other city. Hence, I wanted to get out of London at first. Then I decided that actually, I really love London. I know it's a typical Londoner thing to say. So, what do you think of this? Because I personally think that capitalism is something that could be a good thing if it is played correctly. And this game means not abusing your power. For instance, lots of large businesses, they do tend to get into lots of lawsuits, obviously, because they've done some fraud, or for instance, lots of other tax evasion. But if you don't do that and you somehow succeed from it, from smart business tactics, then why is that such a bad thing? And people tend to hate on people who earn money, but sure, it's their success, is it not? So how is that any of your business? Politics aside, conservative governments were Tories. Yes. So that's the thing. And people tend to hate stories in general. I'm not going to get into it. But either way, I think capitalism can be most likely economically derived, but also in personal factors, such as socialism, for instance. I said it's quite important to note that capitalism isn't all about money, even if it's about economics in general. So, what do you think? It's, well, it's based on your opinion, but we're still playing in it. Because as long as you pay your taxes, you go to work, and you buy food, for instance, then you're playing the game, and everyone wants to level up no matter what. So please let me know in the comments down below also what next videos I can do. I post every Wednesday and Saturday. So I do mostly commentary, social, political, and maybe a bit of tech. So comment down below. See you next video.